a world without hope. The red sun of Kelmar Prime hung low in the dusty sky, casting long shadows across the withered farmlands. Siva knelt in the cracked soil, her 4 slender fingers digging to the dry earth, searching for anything that might still grow. Her people, the Kelmari, had been farmers for thousands of years. Their entire civilization was built on the art of cultivation, on understanding the rhythm of seasons and the language of growing things. But the soil no longer spoke to them. "Nothing again," whispered Terran, her brother, standing beside her with defeated eyes. His thin frame cast barely a shadow in the fading light. Like everyone in their village, he was starving slowly, watching his world die plant by plant, field by field. The Kelmari were a gentle species, tall and graceful with skin that shimmered like morning dew. They had never developed weapons or military technology. They had never needed to. Their strength had always been in growing things, in coaxing life from soil, in understanding the delicate balance of ecosystems. But that strength meant nothing now. The blight that killed everything. 3 cycles ago, the blight had arrived. No one knew where it came from. Some said it was a spore from deep space, carried by a meteorite. Others believed it was punishment for some forgotten sin. But the origin didn't matter. What mattered was that it killed everything. The blight was invisible, a corruption that spread through soil and water. Plants that touched infected earth would wither within days, their roots turning black, their leaves crumbling to ash. The Kelmari had tried everything. They used ancient techniques passed down through generations. They experimented with new compounds created in their small laboratories. They prayed to the old god of harvest. Nothing worked. First, the outer farms died, then the suburban gardens, then the protected greenhouses. Now, even the sacred grove at the center of their capital city was beginning to fail. The great trees that had stood for 10,000 years were losing their leaves. Siva stood, brushing the useless dirt from her hands. Around her, the village was quiet. Too quiet. There were no children playing in the streets because children needed food to have energy for play. There were no adults singing work songs because there was no work left to do. The fields were empty. The storage silos were empty. Hope itself felt empty. The council's last decision. The Planetary Council had made their announcement 3 days ago. Siva had watched it on the village's shared communication screen, standing among her neighbors, feeling their collective despair. Elder Vorin, the oldest member of the council, had delivered the news with tears streaming down his weathered face. "We have exhausted all possibilities," he had said, his voice breaking. "Our scientists confirm that the blight cannot be stopped with our current knowledge. Our food reserves will last another 60 days at strict rationing. After that," he hadn't needed to finish the sentence. They walked back toward their family dwelling, a modest structure made from baked clay and living wood. Or it had been living wood once. Now the walls were brittle and gray. Their mother was inside, preparing what passed for a meal these days. A thin soup made from preserved protein stores and water. It smelled of nothing, tasted of nothing, but it kept them alive for another day. As they sat down to eat, their communication panel flickered to life. It was unusual to receive broadcasts in the evening. Siva moved to activate it, expecting another dire announcement from the council. Instead, she saw an unfamiliar face. The being on the screen had pale skin, short dark hair, and bright blue eyes that seemed intense even to the transmission. The universal translator caption identified the species. Human, from planet Earth. New members of the Galactic Union. Admitted only 6 months ago. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez," the human said, speaking quickly, urgently. "I'm part of Earth's Rapid Response Agricultural Team. We received your planetary distress call 48 hours ago. I want you to know that help is coming. We're loading our ships now. We'll reach Kelmar Prime in 72 hours. Siva's mother dropped her spoon. Terran leaned forward, disbelief written across his face. The human continued. "I've reviewed the data your scientists shared about the blight. We think we know what it is. More importantly, we think we can stop it. Humans have dealt with agricultural crises throughout our history. We've fought blights, droughts, pests, and soil death. We've made mistakes, but we've learned. And we never, ever accept that a world has to die. A strange kind of stubbornness. The transmission showed activity behind Dr. Vasquez. Other humans moving rapidly, loading equipment onto spacecraft. Siva could see containers marked with symbols she didn't recognize, machines whose purposes she couldn't guess. "I need you to understand something," Dr. Vasquez said, her expression fierce. "My superiors in Earth's government wanted to send a survey team first. They wanted to study the problem for months before committing resources. They said it was too risky to act without complete information. But I don't believe in studying a drowning person before deciding to throw them a rope." She leaned closer to the camera. "So I'm coming anyway. My team volunteered. We're bringing everything we need. If we're wrong, if we fail, it's on us. But we're not going to watch your people starve while we debate and analyze. That's not what humans do." The transmission ended. Siva's family sat in stunned silence. Finally, her mother spoke, her voice trembling. Could it be real? Could they actually help us? Terran shook his head slowly. "I don't understand. They're so new to the Galactic Union. Why would they risk their resources, their people, for strangers they've never met?" But Siva was thinking about Dr. Vasquez's words. "We never accept that a world has to die." What kind of species said something like that? What kind of species believed it so completely that they would act against their own government's caution? A planet holds its breath. News of the human response spread across Kelmar Prime within hours. The reaction was mixed. Some, like Siva, felt a desperate hope kindling in their chests. Others were skeptical, afraid to believe after so many disappointments. A few were suspicious, wondering what the humans wanted in return. The Planetary Council convened an emergency session. Siva watched on the village screen as Elder Vorn addressed the planet. "We have confirmed the transmission's authenticity," he said. "A human ship called the Harvest Dawn is indeed en route to our world. It carries a team of 53 humans and substantial cargo. They have asked for nothing in exchange for their help. They have made no demands. They simply come." He paused, seeming to struggle with emotion. "I do not know if they can save us. I do not know if their confidence is justified, or merely the optimism of a young species that hasn't yet learned the universe's harsh lessons. But I know this. They are trying. When others offered sympathy and did nothing, these humans act. Whatever the outcome, that alone deserves our gratitude." Siva looked out her window at the dying fields beyond her village. Somewhere up there, beyond the red sun and the dust clouds, humans were coming, strangers from a distant world, racing across the stars to fight for a planet they'd never seen, for a people they didn't know. She thought about the last harvest, 3 cycles ago, when the fields had still been green. She thought about the festivals they used to hold, celebrating abundance and growth. She thought about the children who should be running through those fields, but instead sat hungry and quiet in darkening homes. 72 hours, she whispered to herself. 3 days until the humans arrived. 3 days to discover if the strange, stubborn species could accomplish what the Kelmari themselves could not. 3 days to learn whether hope was foolish or whether it was the most powerful force in the universe. Outside, the dust storms began, red clouds rolling across dead farmland. But for the first time in months, Siva didn't feel despair as she watched them. Instead, she felt something she'd almost forgotten. She felt possibility. Part 2. The humans who refused to quit. Arrival of the Harvest Dawn. The human ship descended through Kelmar Prime's atmosphere exactly 72 hours after Dr. Vasquez's transmission. Siva stood with what seemed like half her village at the designated landing zone on the outskirts of the capital city. Thousands of Kelmari had gathered, their tall, graceful forms swaying in the wind, their eyes reflecting both hope and fear. The Harvest Dawn was not a military vessel. It wasn't sleek or imposing like the warship Siva had seen in galactic broadcasts. Instead, it looked functional, almost crude, with modular sections and external cargo pods. It was a ship built for work, not for show. As the vessel touched down with a loud mechanical groan, clouds of red dust billowed outward. The Kelmari stepped back instinctively, but Siva held her ground. She wanted to see these humans up close, wanted to understand the species that traveled across the stars to fight for strangers. The cargo ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. Dr. Elena Vasquez emerged first, wearing a practical jumpsuit and carrying a data tablet. She was shorter than Siva had expected. Humans seemed smaller in person than on screens, but there was an energy to her movements, a sense of purpose that made her presence feel larger than her physical size. Behind her came the rest of the team. 53 humans of varying ages and appearances. Some carried equipment. Others pushed hovering cargo containers. All of them moved with practiced efficiency, like a well-coordinated organism. Dr. Vasquez approached Elder Vorn, who stood at the front of the Kelmari gathering. She didn't bow or perform any elaborate greeting. Instead, she extended her hand, a human gesture Vorn had been briefed about. Elder Vorn, she said through the translator device on her collar. Thank you for allowing us to try. We're not going to waste time with ceremonies. Every hour matters. Can you take us to the most affected areas immediately? Humans at work. Within 2 hours, the human team had set up a base of operations in what used to be Kelmar Prime's Central Agricultural Research Facility. Siva had volunteered to serve as a local guide, and she watched in amazement as the humans transformed the abandoned building into a hive of activity. They worked differently than Kelmari, where her people moved with graceful deliberation. Humans seemed to operate on controlled chaos. They spoke rapidly, overlapping each other, gesturing constantly. They appeared to argue frequently, but Siva soon realized these weren't conflicts. It was how they brainstormed, each challenging the other's ideas to find the best solution. Dr. Vasquez gathered the team in the main laboratory. Siva stood at the edge of the room, listening. All right, people, Dr. Vasquez said, projecting a holographic analysis of the blight. We got confirmation. This matches the patterns of the great soil death we dealt with in northern Canada back in 2089. Same microscopic structure, same progression, same damn stubbornness. A human man with gray hair and tired eyes spoke up. Elena, that took us 4 years to reverse. These people have 60 days of food left. I know, Marcus, Dr. Vasquez replied, which is why we're not reversing it. We're going to kill it. Murmurs went through the human team. An younger human woman raised her hand. The protocol for aggressive remediation requires testing periods. We can't just dump treatment compounds without knowing the side effects on local ecosystems. Dr. Vasquez's expression hardened. Then we test fast. Riley, you're on biological impact assessment. I want preliminary results in 12 hours. Samir, you're analyzing the blight's vulnerability points. Find me its weakness. The rest of you, I want treatment options on my desk by morning. Conventional, experimental, I don't care how crazy it sounds. If it might work, I want to know about it. She paused, looking at each team member. I know we're breaking every protocol Earth's agricultural board has. I know this is risky, but I've seen the faces out there. I've seen the children. So we're going to move fast. We're going to be careful as we can, and we're going to save this world. Any questions? No one spoke. Siva realized she was holding her breath. Good, Dr. Vasquez said. Let's get to work. Understanding human determination. Over the next 3 days, Siva barely slept, shadowing the human team as they worked around the clock. She began to understand something profound about these strange beings. Humans never stopped. When exhaustion made them stumble, they drank bitter black liquid. They called coffee and kept working. When problems seemed impossible, they didn't accept defeat. They argued, debated, and somehow found new approaches. When one solution failed, they immediately tried another. Dr. Vasquez rarely left a laboratory. Siva watched her analyze soil samples under microscopes, run simulations on holographic displays, and coordinate with her team through constant communication. The human scientist's eyes were bloodshot, her hair disheveled, but her focus never wavered. On the 4th day, Siva found Dr. Vasquez alone in the lab at 3 a.m, staring at a projection of molecular structures. Why? Siva asked quietly, startling the human. Dr. Vasquez looked up, confused. Why what? Why do you do this? Siva gestured around the lab. Your people are so new to the galaxy. You could have stayed safe on Earth. Why risk everything for us? The human scientist was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled up an image on her data tablet. a photograph of a barren landscape, cracked earth stretching to the horizon. "This is the Oklahoma Dust Bowl," Dr. Vasquez said, "nearly a century ago on Earth. Poor farming practices turned millions of acres of our planet into desert. People starved. Families lost everything. It was a disaster we created through ignorance." She swiped to another image. "This is that same region today. Green fields, thriving communities, restored ecosystems. You know how we fixed it? We refused to accept it was unfixable. We learned, we adapted, we fought the desert itself and won." Dr. Vasquez looked at Siva directly. "Humans have a saying, while there's life, there's hope. We face extinction events, plagues, famines, wars. We've made terrible mistakes. But we've also learned that giving up is the only true failure. Your people are alive. That means there's still a chance. And if there's a chance, humans will fight for it. The moment of truth." On the seventh day, Dr. Vasquez called an assembly. Every human team member gathered in the main lab, along with Elder Vorin, Siva, and several other Kelmari representatives. "We have a solution," Dr. Vasquez announced. "It's aggressive, it's experimental, and it's risky, but our models show an 87% probability of success." She projected a complex diagram. "The blight is a parasitic organism that feeds on the electromagnetic bonds in your soil's mineral structure. It's why nothing grows. It's literally eating the foundation of your earth. We can't kill it with conventional methods because it adapts too quickly." Marcus, the gray-haired scientist, took over. "So we're proposing a multi-stage approach. First, we introduce a genetically modified bacteria that will compete with the blight for resources. Second, we deploy a series of low-frequency electromagnetic pulses that will disrupt the blight's cellular communication. Third, we treat the soil with a compound that will restore the mineral bonds." "How long will this take?" Elder Vorin asked, his voice trembling. "Full planetary treatment?" Dr. Vasquez calculated quickly. 40 days to cover all agricultural zones. Another 20 days to verify effectiveness. The timing is going to be extremely tight with your food supplies, but it's doable. A Kelmari scientist spoke up nervously. "What are the risks? What if the bacteria you introduce becomes invasive? What if the electromagnetic pulses harm our ecosystem?" Dr. Vasquez didn't sugarcoat it. "There are risks. The bacteria could mutate in unexpected ways. The electromagnetic pulses might affect some of your native species. The treatment compound might have side effects we haven't predicted. These are all possibilities." She paused. "But doing nothing is certain death for your world. Taking action gives you a chance. That's the calculation." A planet decides a hope. The Planetary Council deliberated for 6 hours. Siva waited outside the council chambers with Terran and their mother, along with thousands of other Kelmari who had gathered to hear the decision. When Elder Vorin finally emerged, his face was unreadable. He approached the gathered crowd slowly, and the square fell silent. "The council has voted," he said, his voice carrying across the space. "We accept the human proposal. We choose to fight for our world." The reaction was immediate. Some Kelmari wept with relief. Others embraced. A few looked terrified. But overwhelmingly, Siva felt a wave of collective determination sweep through the crowd. Dr. Vasquez and her team had been waiting nearby. When they heard the decision, they didn't celebrate. They simply nodded and immediately began deploying equipment. The next 40 days were a blur of constant activity. The humans worked in shifts, treating field after field with their bacterial solution, deploying electromagnetic pulse generators across the planet, distributing treatment compounds to every agricultural zone. Siva volunteered to help, working alongside human team members. She learned their work songs, their jokes, their habit of pushing past exhaustion through sheer willpower. She watched them celebrate small victories and bounce back from setbacks with frustrating optimism. On day 15, Terran ran to find her in the fields. "Siva," he shouted, "the test plot in the southern valley. Something's growing." They raced to the location. A small area that had been treated first now showed tiny green shoots pushing through the dark soil. It wasn't much, just a few plants, but it was life returning to dead earth. Dr. Vasquez knelt beside the shoots, her data scanner beeping rapidly. When she looked up, tears were streaming down her face. "It's working," she whispered. "It's actually working." The first new harvest. 60 days after the humans arrived, Siva stood in her family's field and watched something she thought she would never see again. The crops were growing. Not everywhere yet. The treatment was still spreading across the planet. But here, in this field, life had returned. The plants were small, fragile, but they were real. Their leaves caught the light of the red sun, photosynthesizing, converting starlight into life itself. The sight was so beautiful that Siva couldn't stop the tears that came. Taryn worked beside her, carefully tending the young plants. Their mother stood at the field's edge, singing an old harvest song that no one had dared sing for 3 cycles. Dr. Vasquez approached with her ever-present data tablet, now showing planetary statistics. "The blight is in full retreat," she reported. "Your soil's mineral structure is regenerating faster than we predicted. The electromagnetic pulses work better than expected. And the bacteria," she smiled, "the bacteria seem to actually like your ecosystem. They're thriving." Elder Voren had come to witness the field as well. He approached Dr. Vasquez with slow, ceremonial steps. "How can we ever repay this?" he asked. "You saved our entire species. You risked your resources, your time, your people's safety. What do you want in return?" The human scientist looked genuinely confused by the question. "Want in return? Elder, we don't want anything. Seeing those plants grow? Knowing your people will survive? That's the payment." She gestured to her team, who were scattered across the field, still working, still monitoring, still refusing to rest until the job was done. Humans believe that life is precious. All life. When we learned your world was dying, we couldn't just do nothing. That's not who we are. A new understanding. 3 months after the harvest dawn arrived, the planet was transformed. Green cover would have been red dust. Crops grew in fields that had been barren. The great trees in the capital's sacred grove were sprouting new leaves. The food crisis was over. The Kelmari would survive. A departure ceremony was held for the human team. Thousands of Kelmari gathered to say goodbye to these strange, stubborn beings who had refused to let their world die. Siva stood near the Harvest Dawn's ramp, waiting to speak with Dr. Vasquez one last time. When the scientist finally had a moment, Siva approached carefully. "I want to understand," Siva said. "Your people fight and argue constantly. You seem disorganized. You work in ways that look like chaos. But somehow you saved us. How?" Dr. Vasquez laughed, a sound Siva had come to recognize as uniquely human, containing both humor and something deeper. "You're right, we're messy. We argue because we care deeply about getting things right. We seem chaotic because we value speed and adaptability over rigid planning. We work ourselves to exhaustion because we can't stand watching suffering when we might be able to stop it." She put her hand on Siva's shoulder. Another gesture Siva had learned meant comfort and connection to humans. "Your people are elegant, graceful, and wise. You've built a beautiful civilization. But sometimes what the universe needs isn't elegance. Sometimes it needs stubborn humans who refuse to accept that problems are unsolvable." The Harvest Dawn lifted off an hour later, carrying the human team back to Earth. Siva watched until the ship disappeared into the red sky, becoming a star among stars. That evening, her family sat down to their first real meal in months. Fresh vegetables from their own field, protein from restored livestock, fruit from recovering orchards. As they ate, Siva thought about the humans. They had arrived when no one else would help. They had worked when the task seemed impossible. They had risked everything for strangers. And when they succeeded, they had asked for nothing. "What are you thinking?" Taryn asked, noticing her distant expression. Siva smiled. "I'm thinking that the universe is lucky to have humans in it. And I hope someday, when they need help, we'll remember what they taught us. That you never accept that a world has to die. That while there's life, there's hope. That the only true failure is giving up." She looked out the fields beyond their window, green and growing under the red sun. Life returned to dead earth. Hope growing from despair. All because one species refused to watch another suffer. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not technology or weapons or resources, but something more powerful. The absolute refusal to accept that good people should perish when something could be done. As Siva lay down to sleep that night, full for the first time in months, she whispered a traditional Kelmari blessing into the darkness. But she added something new at the end, words in the human language she'd learned. Thank you. And somewhere, racing across the stars back to their distant home, 53 humans who had saved a world they'd never seen smiled, already planning their next impossible rescue. Because that's what humans did.